President-elect Donald Trump's controversial pick for Attorney General has withdrawn his nomination. The Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz came up against opposition from senior Republicans in the Senate. Our Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen has the details.
In the first major test of Donald Trump's influence in a Republican-controlled Senate, his unusual pick for Attorney General has now voluntarily dropped out. Matthew Gaetz is a staunch supporter of Donald Trump, but he was also the subject of a congressional investigation that was looking into allegations he had sex with a 17-year-old girl. The 42-year-old Florida congressman resigned his seat last week when Donald Trump announced he was nominating him to be the Attorney General. It raised questions over whether the congressional report would be released.
There was no consensus on this issue.
Just yesterday, Matt Gaetz was spotted on Capitol Hill after meeting with Senate Republicans and seemed positive.
Folks have been very supportive. They've been saying we're going to get a fair process.
The US Constitution requires all cabinet secretaries to be confirmed by a vote in Congress. In a statement announcing the news, the outgoing congressman said, "I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it's clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition team." There is no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle, thus I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ, Department of Justice, must be in place and ready on day one. Soon after, Donald Trump posted, "I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time, did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things he will do." A major roadblock for Gaetz was that he needed the support of senior Republicans like incoming Judiciary Chair Senator Chuck Grassley.
Because you've heard my colleagues, especially on the Republican side, say that they have some questions.
And outgoing Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, neither of whom are expected to run again for office and aren't reliant on Donald Trump for electoral support. Congress acts as a check on executive power, which Donald Trump will once again assume. This is the clearest signal yet that those Senate Republicans intend to hold on to that power, even with their preferred president in the White House. Annalise Nielsen, Sky News, Washington, D.C.
Joining me now is Chuck Schumer's former advisor, Jim Kessler. Jim, great to see you. We haven't spoken since I was in the United States, but let's start with Matt Gaetz. That old chestnut where he says he doesn't want to be a distraction. What's really going on here?
Well, he lost. Let's be clear. He was wholly unqualified to be Attorney General of the United States, even without the allegations of sex with minors, the cocaine use, and the ecstasy use. He's a flamethrower. He is a vendetta person. It was a poor choice by Donald Trump. It's kind of evidence that he's going to be erratic as president. Like, I know he's going to pick some outside the box choices. This was a bad choice for Trump and a quick defeat. And, quick defeats are not good for him.
Yeah, Trump hasn't come out and defended him, to my knowledge. What does that say?
Well, I think you can read the writing on the wall. And, look, I think most Republican senators, and there are 53 of them in the coming Congress, will do pretty much whatever Donald Trump wants, but not all 53. And, Matt Gaetz was a bridge too far. There may be some others, too, that fall into this category. There are some other choices that I feel are very questionable. And usually something doesn't go south for a president-elect that quickly. So this is interesting.
It doesn't really matter, though, does it? Because when you look at the election result, Trump increased his vote and won on every single metric. So, Jim, with a little bit of distance now between now and the election, what went wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's the fault of Kamala Harris. I think she actually ran for the first 8 weeks, like a really fantastic campaign.
She's got to take
For the
some of
last
the
8 weeks.
responsibility, though, surely, Jim.
Yes, but I think the responsibility is deeper. I think she was carrying a lot of baggage behind her, some of which was her fault from the race she ran in 2019 in the primary, that she went way too far left then. But I also think, and I think this is more Biden's fault than Harris's fault, the administration got to the right place, wait on the border way too late, on crime way too late, on inflation way too late, on woke issues way too late, and on getting Biden out of the race because of his age way too late. And I think she was just given a tough hand to play. She played it awfully well, but that baggage was too much.
Yeah, excuse me. I would agree with that as well, but way too late. I mean, years too late, really, on many of those fronts. And even when Biden did step down to make way for Kamala, she was still hamstrung. It seemed that the Democrats didn't want to admit that, he was too old or not up to the job. And that really affected her during the campaign, didn't it?
It did. And I think, voters were asked for several, once Biden said, I'm going to run for re-election, which surprised a lot of people. And he said that in 2022, Democrats, especially Washington Democrats, had to pretend they weren't seeing what they were seeing right in front of them. And, I think Biden still was able to perform the job of the presidency, but he was not able to perform the job of running for the presidency, which is a different type of task. And he really needed not to run. And for there to be an open primary to choose a candidate, it probably would have been Harris in an open primary. But, this was, look, politicians are like athletes. They retire one season too late. And Biden, he retired one season too late.
Yeah, sure. I mean, even on that former point you make about he was still up to the job as president but not running for president, I accept that they are two different roles and you need a lot more energy for the second one. But even on the first, there are questions around that. Surely, I mean, with all the stuff-ups, quite frankly, that he was making towards the end, what it did was undermine the office of president and really prove to Americans and the rest of the world that the White House and the staff were running the show rather than an executive in a president like Joe Biden. And that is, I think, a really dangerous thing to allow happen.
So I think for Biden's first 2 years, he was a very, very strong president, and he got a lot of accomplished through Congress. And you don't do that by accident and by your staff doing it. No. After that, there was decline. And what's the point where the decline is such that he really can't do his job? I don't know. I will say this. Donald Trump is older than Joe Biden was when he started too. And he didn't look so good in the last couple months either. I think we're going to be in the same situation with Trump where people are pretending not to see what everybody else could see maybe in a year or two.
Yeah, maybe. One final question here, Jim, and we'll talk again next week and get to some of the issues that we won't get to today because there are so many. But do you think this election result will give the Democrats, more appetite for risk, perhaps? Not just messaging, but taking risks and not, moralizing to Americans about issues that clearly don't matter to them.
Yeah, so I think the first thing Democrats have to do is learn how to listen better. And, voters were saying what was important and they didn't listen. They said, Democrats said, climate change is number one. Well, voters said, that's number 10 for us. And the other thing is, in terms of risk, I'd like to see the next Democrat promise to never use a teleprompter. I just think we need to be looser and more unscripted. And I agree, less safe and be willing to offend. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we need diversity of opinion more as well, So I think a lot of lessons for Democrats. we're going to be arguing about that over the next few years.
I think so too, Jim. As they say, if you sit on the fence, you get splinters, and there's a fair few splinters in Democratic butts at the moment. It's great to talk to you, and your analysis is really insightful this morning, as always. I appreciate it.
Thank you.